The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
I'm very excited about my guest, but before I get to my guest, I have a little message from our sponsor.
The Wellness Company has answers for all of your health needs. They've stood strong against the and in fact, if you have taken the they have spike support. This is a fantastic product. It's even good if you're just working around people who are shedding. You know what I'm talking about. They have this, they have medical emergency kits, they have all kinds of things. We know that there looks like there's going to be something else, another wave coming of something, and the Wellness Company has you covered. So go to the link below, use the code SORBO for 10% off. Thanks.
Welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. I have with me today an author who I find very interesting. He pursued his academic studies. He was born in Sweden, and so he received his MA in history at Uppsala University, where I've been. And then he studied U.S. history in North Dakota. He's been living all over the place. He now lives in the United States. He's written books on Swedish history and also American history. And today we're going to talk about his new book, Radical Betrayal, which is a little bit of the American side of history, how liberals and neoconservatives are wrecking American exceptionalism. This is an interesting conversation about American exceptionalism. So welcome to the program, Anders Edwardsson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's lovely to speak with you. I'm sad that we're not speaking Swedish, but I wouldn't be able to even conduct the interview in Swedish, I'm afraid, because my Swedish has failed over time. But in any case,
it's still darn close to perfect, though.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so Radical Betrayal. I've looked through this, and you talk about American exceptionalism, and I thought that would be a good place to start, because you start the book talking a little bit about let's define our terms, right? And so let's define American exceptionalism. It's a word that we sort of throw around, and it's a word that actually is a little bit of a trigger point now for many people. Oh, America's not exceptional. What are you talking about? So and especially from your point of view as a foreigner who wasn't raised here, what is your take on all of this?
American exceptionalism is actually not more or less than what we can generically call American nationalism. All successful, long-lasting nation has a narrative, a supporting narrative between people and to the people, from governments and churches or whatever institution may be involved in keeping the state going. And Sweden, for example, as you mentioned, for a long time saw itself as the representative for the one and only true Christian faith in form of the Swedish form of Lutheranism. Today, its rationale for itself is that it's the most avant-garde welfare state on the planet, and so on and so forth. The French, after the revolution, had that they were spreading modernity to the world. American exceptionalism is just the American version, the American narrative. And the core of it is that America is different from other countries because we are freer, our taxes are lower, the regulations are fewer. America is seen by the people for the people, instead of, like in many older nations, more or less private dukedom. The elites owned France, they owned Britain. The Swedish aristocracy saw themselves as more or less the owner of Sweden. The Tsars owned Russia. In the US, it's bottom up from the beginning, and that set this country apart. And for over 100 years, no one really questioned this story. But as we will probably come into in a few minutes, since the last 120 years or so, especially the political left, but also some on the right, has started to question this original format of exceptionalism and has either abandoned it or corrupted it. So today, the US is on a long and slow but steady stumbling journey down a path that takes us and makes us more and more like Europe and other Western welfare states.
Hi there. You know, for years I've been talking about how our public schools, our government schools, have been captured by progressives and their progressive ideology, and that they are teaching things that directly contradict the values of millions of Americans, our traditional American values. And that's especially true if you're a Christian family. So for those of you who are worried about the best educational path for your children, I am pleased to announce my new partnership with the Herzog Foundation. They are a trusted source on K through 12 Christian education, and they have a remarkable suite of resources for parents who are thinking about making the switch from government schools to either Christian schools or homeschool. From their online publication of The Lion to their network of podcasts like mine, the Herzog Foundation offers a wide range of advice and information for Christian parents to make the best educational decisions for their children. If you want to learn more about how your family, your faith, your community can flourish through a Christian education, you go to herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com. Thanks for listening. Right. So I've never heard of anybody saying French exceptionalism or British exceptionalism. But it seems like you're saying that every country considers itself exceptional and in distinct ways. Is that true?
Many country does, even if US is the only country that used that specific label for its nationalism. I mean, the French especially see themselves as a very exceptional country with especially after the revolution, like the beacon of modernity and democracy and everything. And the British saw themselves as special and exceptional when they had their empire. And as I said, even the small Swedes did it. The Russians do it too. They see themselves as the third Rome. And so on and so forth. So,
but you do make the distinction between exceptionalism and patriotism. It's not nationalism, right?
It's potatoes and potatoes. It's very much the same thing. Exceptionalism, of course, is special in that it stresses certain themes and notions. Like, for example, in original American exceptionalism, the notion of a very small federal government, very extensive state rights and personal freedoms, low taxes, small bureaucracy, few regulations.
See, I define, if somebody just sort of asked me on the street, how would you define American exceptionalism? I would define it as the way that America became the greatest leap forward for human progress. And that came from the values, the tenets upon which this nation was founded, which were distinct from every other nation. And that's what allowed us, as basically one of the poorest nations in the world when we began, to harness individual ingenuity and creativity and manpower and work ethic to create this great prosperity that became manifest worldwide, but originated here in the United States. So to me, that's American exceptionalism. We're exceptional because there isn't another country that approached that. But I like that you want to, in a sense, take that word and turn it into Americanism, like combining the two words, Americanism. That makes a lot of sense to me. but it never really occurred to, I mean, I know that the French have their snobbery. If you, they think that their language is the best language. I'm actually not going to disagree with that. The Swedes have, their claim is that they are a welfare country and socialist, and socialism works. That can be actually debated, right? So, but also, I don't want to disagree with nations who have national feelings, because I think that helps the world, that nations are nationalistic. I think where we went wrong is after the Second World War, we allowed certain factions to say the Nazis were evil, but it wasn't because of their socialism / communism, because socialism is communism. It was because of their nationalism. And so now the globalists have sort of latched onto that to say nationalism is bad. Do you disagree?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's the very core of what is today called globalism. That they see the world, the globalists see the world as destined to move towards one government, one world government, one world culture. And you can, I say, at best, it's a beautiful daydream, but it will never ever work in real life. History, if anything, shows us that small to mid-sized nations, mid-sized meaning maximum something like America or Canada or something like that. China, maybe historically. That's as far as we can come because of the inbuilt sinful nature of humankind. When states get bigger than that, when governments try to rule over bigger areas than, say, America or China or Canada, Brazil, they tend to either to fall apart because they get too big and people within them don't have enough in common, or they turn like the Mongol Empire or the Roman Empire or the Russians today. They must turn to violence and force to keep their countries together. And that never works in the long run. Nationalism in small and middle-sized countries is the glue, the only working glue to hold larger states together. And for that to work, people must have certain things in common: language, culture, not so much looks these days maybe, but still you must have a sense of commonality. And American exceptionalism is the American story. That's the story that we all share or should share. So we feel that we have more in common than those other people out there, and that holds us together and makes us loyal to the state. We pay our taxes, we obey the police, we're prepared to go to war if necessary, because we feel we have something in common that is worth defending.
But it's funny because it's similar to, in a sense, it's similar to the Christian faith. It's like everybody's welcome. You can join us. You just need to subscribe to the things that we subscribe to freedom of speech, to the right to assembly, right, to our Bill of Rights and our Constitution, and the rule of law, which, by the way, people don't even know what that means anymore. And I would say that, in a sense, what you're talking about is we've lost that commonality, and it's been educated out of us. We've been schooled away from that commonality, and it started probably in the late 60s or the early 70s when they started lauding the multicultures and putting other cultures above the American culture. So you became a Mexican American, an African American. You're not just American, you have this other culture that actually in a sense supersedes being American, right?
Yes, and this is the very core of all my book, Radical Betrayal. It is that American exceptionalism was this glue up until after the Second World War sometimes. Then these centrifugal ideas and powers took over. People, as you say, they started not to see themselves as Americans first. They started to see themselves as African Americans first, or gay American first, or women first, or young, old, whatever. And as
They also
time
brought
has,
shame.
sorry,
There was a campaign to bring shame. There was shame in being American, right?
yes, that falls into the broader Western pattern after the Second World War, when, as you said, the elites choose to blame everything bad Hitler did on his nationalism rather than his socialism. Nationalism, patriotism is universal. It has been with us since we were hunter-gatherers, and it will be with us probably until the end of times, because it's that glue that holds people together. But after the Second World War, exactly as you imply, globalist ideas and beautiful daydreams about that we are all just one humanity on one planet, yada yada yada. It doesn't work on a global scale, but they have pushed this now. So there is today, that's a lot of people are schizophrenic when it comes to what it means to be an American. Even it was obvious up until 50, 60, 70 years ago. Now, I would say half the population probably have a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, I don't want American, that imperialistic Schweinhund. The education system especially is responsible for this, because they have taught generations now that America is bad and evil and filled with bad people.
Well, not only that, we have icons of our culture. I'm thinking just recently, Barbara Streisand and somebody else, I can't remember who, said that they were going to leave the United States if this person was elected president. I don't know why I said this person, if Trump was elected president, right? So they so willingly would, and by the way, they will never leave. And everybody knows they will never leave. And so it's absurd that they even say it, because plenty of times people have threatened and they never make good on their threats. But they're saying that it's not, that being American is not worth the fight.
No, exactly. And this is not uniquely American, unfortunately. This happens all over Europe, in Australia and New Zealand. The ruling elites despise their own countries and their own cultures, more or less, and want. These people only seem to be really happy when they are in Davos once a year and talk to each other and can gas bag about the climate and social equity and all that. They are not proud to be Americans or Swedes or British or French or whatever it is, really. They have, just like the old European aristocracy in the 16, 17, 1800s, they have formed an international class that has more in common with each other than with us who lives under them. We are more or less we are their servants, in the meaning they're taxpayers who should shut up and vote on whoever they think will be the best president
to implement their policies.
Yes. So it's
okay. So why, it's a great book, Radical Betrayal, How Liberals and Neoconservatives Are Wrecking American Exceptionalism. or Americanism, as you like to call it, which I quite like. Americanism. I don't know. It has a good ring to it.
It's technically two different things, but in reality, they connote the same thing. And I picked Americanism just because to save space.
Sure. But I would like to bring back American exceptionalism. So
Absolutely.
in this book, you're talking about how it has been eroded. And so tell me, let's just cover the book a little bit. Why did you write the book, and who is the book for?
Well, it started out as a PhD dissertation in politics that I wrote for Catholic University up in Washington, D.C. So it has the basic thesis and the material. My research has gone through very rigid academic quality standards. Then I have popularized the language and sharpened the analysis, made it a little bit more provocative maybe than a PhD dissertation. But I felt I moved here permanently in 2011 and became a citizen in 2016. And I felt it was a story that I really wanted to tell from a foreigner's perspective, because sometimes you see things better from a distance. And it's, as I dug deep into modern American history and politics, I saw patterns that not too many of my professors brought up or many times didn't even really want to talk about. So when I got my PhD, I took some private time and I sat down and rewrote it, and hopefully it's a relatively easy read for everyone who wants to understand what has happened in America the last 150 years. And especially the last 10, 15 or so, because America functioned relatively well as one unit up until, say, 20, 25, 30 years ago. Since then, the political discourse has turned so ugly, so harsh, so bitter, that today I hate the thought of it, but I can't shake the thought that America maybe one day in my lifetime will actually split up, because the heart-bleeding liberals on the West Coast and in the Northeast have so little in common with Floridians and people from Michigan and red America, that except for speaking the same language so far, it's like they belong to different universes. And historically, no country has managed to stay united under such circumstances for very long if the government, central government, has not used force to keep it together. And we see some ugly things today with these ridiculous attempt to try to lock Trump up in front of next year's election, and all these intelligence organizations, mass surveillance of American citizens, and so on and so forth, that the federal government is turning more and more autocratic, just what the founding fathers warned us for and tried to set up a system to stop. But they don't respect the Constitution anymore, so they go around it, over it and under it, just to increase their own powers to keep the rest of us in our place.
Well, and I think that they've managed to convince people that the right, the conservative, the Republican is evil. And when you're going to stop evil, you'll resort to anything, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
so I think that that's what we're up against. You mentioned you don't think that people, even if they speak the same language, or you said something like, we still speak the same language. We'll see. I don't even know that we speak the same language anymore. I watched a short clip of the daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, I think is her name, on The View. And the way those women talk about Trump and about January 6th, and Alexandra Pelosi did a video, did some documentary based on January 6th and these terrible, terrible criminals who toured the Capitol, and she actually tried to present that some of them weren't there to tear down the country, but they firmly believe, the women of the show and the woman who produced the documentary, they firmly believe that insurrection, they call it an insurrection, was to destroy the federal government. Now, you and I look at that and we say, how? They brought no weapons. In what way was their intention to destroy the federal government? In what way was that a dark day for democracy? Well, they walked through the Capitol building, the People's House. They walked through the People's House. Well, they broke windows. Okay. Some people broke windows. Those people should be punished. That is called vandalism, but it's not called an insurrection, and it's not called tearing down the federal government. But that's what they're calling it.
I mean, January 6th has turned into, there were a few hundred people who behaved badly, but there's several.
Well, and there were people there who were intentionally there to foment trouble, some of whom worked for the federal government.
Yes. But J6, as they call it, has turned into one of these tokens, one of these idols of the elites, and broadly, even quite a few elite Republicans are on this train, that they are trying to stage it as an attempt to a second American Revolution, or something like that.
They're saying, look at that. See what I mean? Look at that. And I'm going, I see nothing there. There's nothing there.
No. But what they have done, and here you see it's a very good example, another example of the power of narratives. Just like American exceptionalism is one narrative that unites us, the J6 narrative has become a narrative to divide us. They have deliberately spun this. They have taken the worst pictures and the worst examples of what happened that day, deleted everything else, and just put it into a story that half the country should actually be locked up because they are dangerous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But on the other hand, that kind of behavior in a democracy is a very clear sign of that they are desperate. They feel that the power is slipping out of their hands because the people have had it. It's when you take such overtones, when you start to tell such partly blatant lies, as they, what was her name, Liz Cheney, and these people. It shows me, as a historian and a political scientist, that they are nervous. They are desperate, even because they are scared dead for what will happen next year, and I think they have a relatively good reason for it, because it will the result will most certainly not be in their favor.
Okay, so let's talk about that for just a minute. What's your prediction for next year?
Well, I have always, my whole life, I have done elections predictions for America since 1996, and all except one, the one in 2012, actually came around. the thing with making predictions now is that with all this ballot harvesting and maybe also straight out cheating that is going on, it's very hard. But if I have to work with what I have, I will say that Trump will win every state he won in 2016, plus probably Nevada, maybe Virginia, New Hampshire, and all of Maine. So I think he will win comfortable, not a landslide, but a comfortable victory, and come back.
So you still see that he has that much support?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then, if that will happen, if they will try to fix it with, as they seem to have at least partly did in 2020 with ballot harvesting and all this, that's beyond the scope of my guesswork here. We will have to see. Many states has, at least to some extent, sharpened their election rules to stop this from happening again. But then you have important, crucial states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, which is very deep blue. It's hard to say if they will try again.
So then let me ask you this, because there's a long-term agenda here. If Trump is in office, then the agenda becomes to divide the nation further, right?
It was that at least during his first 4 years. If they will push as hard during a second term is a little bit more questionable, because now he can't run for re-election. All the garbage all the kitchen sinks they threw at him during his first 4 years was with the one and only objective to stop his re-election, and if possible, force him to resign and put Mike Pence in instead. That thing will be gone if he comes back after next year. So hopefully, at least, it will be a little bit more civilized.
Oh my gosh, that's the most optimistic thing I've heard.
I'm more optimistic.
Yeah, no, I think they will use it to further try to divide the country and erode our, what we're calling Americanism, to put us closer on the path to globalism. They'll be able to use his presidency to paint us as a racist, Nazi, white supremacist society or something along those lines, misogynistic, you name it, all the pejoratives all rolled up into one. But I do appreciate your optimism.
The risk that you are right and I'm wrong is huge.
Well, I prefer to see things your way. Rose-colored glasses never hurt. I
wouldn't call them rose-colored. Maybe a little pink on the side.
A little bit
here,
pink.
But...
All right, Anders Edwardsson, and this is the name of the book. Oh, well, my paper's in it. Radical Betrayal: How Liberals and Neoconservatives Are Wrecking American Exceptionalism. You can buy it anywhere good books are sold, I imagine.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I saw that even Walmart is carrying it online. So
even Walmart.
Even Walmart. You can also go on the back side is it's www.radicalbetrayal.com.
Right here, I'm showing everybody the back of the.
Yes,
it's radicalbetrayal.com.
That address takes people to my personal website, and there you can buy signed copies online.
There you go. So thank you so much for coming on the Sam Sorbo Show. It's been a pleasure to have you here. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for tuning in.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.